The galactic patrol ship Lunareth glided silently through the edge of the Kalara Nebula, its silver hull reflecting the cold, distant light of dying stars. Inside, the crew moved with quiet efficiency, adjusting controls, scanning nearby sectors, and monitoring energy signatures. It was a routine patrol, or so they thought, until the sensors picked up something unusual. At first, it appeared as a small, irregular blip floating among the wreckage of an ancient smuggler vessel. But when the ship zoomed in, the crew saw a tiny pod, battered and drifting in the void. The pod's surface was cracked, scorched by the heat of re-entry or maybe by laser fire. Kalar, the captain of Lunareth, leaned over the control console, his three-fingered hand brushing the cold metal. "Life signs," said the ship's medical officer, a slim Vayari named Lyran. Her translucent skin glowed faintly in the dim light. "1 week but alive. Whoever or whatever it is, it's barely clinging on." A hush fell over the bridge. The crew had encountered stranded beings before, but never anything like this. The pod's design was unfamiliar, round, metallic, and almost primitive compared to the advanced tech of the galaxy's civilizations. Most importantly, there was something fragile inside, something human. "Bring it aboard," Kalar ordered. His voice carried both curiosity and a strange unease. "Prepare the medbay, and be careful." The airlock opened with a hiss and the crew moved as one. They carefully attached the pod to the medbay's docking port. With a soft mechanical whir, the pod unlocked and opened, revealing the occupant. The human inside was pale, small compared to the Vayari, with delicate limbs that looked as if a strong wind could break them. His chest rose and fell unevenly and his eyes fluttered open, revealing deep brown irises filled with fear and confusion. A soft voice, hoarse and trembling, broke the silence. "Human," he whispered. The word hung in the air, strange and foreign to the crew. Kalar exchanged a glance with Lyran. This being was not in any galactic archive. No one knew where he had come from. "Stabilize him," Lyran said, moving with practiced precision. She scanned his body with a device that traced his heartbeat, his oxygen levels, and his rapidly fading energy reserves. "He's alive, but barely. If we delay, we could lose him." The human's resilience was astonishing. Despite the injuries, despite the unimaginable journey across light years of space, he had survived. Even his breathing, shallow though it was, carried a determination the Vayari could almost feel. Kalar knelt beside the bed, careful not to crowd the human. "Where are you from?" he asked gently. The human coughed, eyes widening with a flicker of recognition and relief. "Earth," he said, his voice weak but clear. I'm from Earth." The name meant nothing to most of the crew. Lyran studied the human, fascinated. "Earth?" she repeated. "That's a planet in which sector?" The human shook his head. "You won't know it, not yet. It's small, peaceful. I didn't want this." He paused, and for a moment his eyes glistened with unshed tears. "I didn't want anyone to find me. I just wanted to survive." A quiet weight fell over the crew. They had not expected this. The universe was vast, filled with unknown civilizations, powerful fleets, and endless danger. Yet here was a single, fragile human, alone, unarmed, and completely unaware of the storms he had stumbled into. Kalar straightened and looked out at the stars beyond the medbay window. Somewhere far away, this human had called a blue planet home, and now, by fate or accident, that home would soon be known to the galaxy. Lyran placed a reassuring hand on the human's shoulder. "You're safe now. We will protect you." The human's lips curved into a faint, tired smile. "Thank you," he whispered. I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't found me." The Lunareth continued its silent journey through the void, carrying its fragile, extraordinary passenger into the unknown. None of the crew could yet imagine how much this small, seemingly ordinary human would change the course of history, not just for their ship or their patrol, but for the entire galaxy. And as the stars passed by in endless streams of light, one truth became clear: rescuing him was only the beginning. Daniel Carter slowly opened his eyes, blinking against the soft glow of the medbay. Everything around him seemed too big, too bright, too unfamiliar. The walls of the Vayari ship were curved, smooth, and humming with quiet energy. Strange lights moved along the panels, casting shifting colors across the floor. He had survived the jump through space, survived the crash in the pod, and now he was alive, but alive among strangers. The crew of the Lunareth watched him closely. Kalar leaned on the console, studying Daniel as one might observe a rare, delicate creature. Lyran was at his side, monitoring his vital signs with careful attention, her glowing skin reflecting concern and curiosity. Daniel's frail human form seemed almost impossibly fragile compared to the towering, resilient aliens around him. Yet despite his small size, there was something in his eyes that commanded attention. A spark, a stubborn fire that refused to die. Where am I? Daniel whispered, his voice hoarse. He tried to sit up, but the effort made him wince. His hands trembled as he touched the edge of the medbed, still learning the meaning of weightlessness in space. You are aboard Lunareth, a Vayari patrol ship, Lyran explained gently. Her voice was melodic, soothing, unlike anything Daniel had ever heard. You were drifting in a pod in deep space. We rescued you. Daniel swallowed, trying to process the words. Rescue? A word so simple yet so heavy with meaning. He had expected death, or at least endless drifting among the stars. And now he had been saved. But why? Why had these aliens, so different from anything he had known, risked themselves for him? Keller stepped forward. You are a human, he said. We have never encountered your species before. Tell us about your home. Daniel hesitated. Earth, it's a small planet. Blue oceans, green land. People like me, ordinary people. We don't have fleets. We don't have weapons to fight in space. I never meant to leave. I never meant anyone to find me out here. Lyran's glow dimmed slightly. You have spirit, Daniel, she said softly. Even in this fragile form, even after what you have endured, you have not given up. That is remarkable. The word remarkable hung in the air, and Daniel felt a strange warmth. For the first time since the crash, he allowed himself a small smile. He had survived because of luck, yes, and because of his training, but also because someone had cared enough to save him. Over the next days, Daniel began to explore the ship cautiously. Every corridor, every chamber fascinated him. He marveled at the way the Vayari technology flowed seamlessly. How machines seemed almost alive. How light and sound and energy intertwined in a rhythm beyond human comprehension. He asked questions endlessly, pointing at control panels, buttons, and screens, and the crew answered patiently, explaining as best they could in his broken language. What are those stars? He asked one evening, gazing out of a massive viewport at the sparkling expanse. They look close, yet so far. They are suns, Lyran replied. Each one lights a world, some with life, some without. You will see many more. Daniel's gaze lingered on the distant points of light. His heart ached for his home, for the simple skies of Earth. Yet he felt a strange connection to the vastness around him, a sense that his small life now mattered in a galaxy far bigger than he had ever imagined. The crew began to notice something else. Daniel's courage, his humor, his endless curiosity. Unlike most beings rescued from the void, he did not retreat into fear. He laughed, told stories of his world, and even attempted to learn Vayari customs. He was a stranger among stars, yes, but he was a human. And humans, as the galaxy would soon learn, had a way of leaving their mark, even when the odds were stacked impossibly against them. And as Daniel stood at the viewport each night, whispering the name of his blue planet into the quiet of space, none of the crew could yet understand how this fragile, resilient human would change the fate of worlds. The weeks passed quietly on the Lunareth, but the calm was fragile. Word of the rescued human had spread faster than the crew realized. Across the galaxy, whispers began to circulate, rumors of a new species, small but alive, floating among the stars. Some were curious, some were cautious, but some were dangerous. The Kothar Dominion, a militaristic empire known for its ruthless expansion, took notice first. Their scouts detected the unusual pod, and soon reports reached the Dominion's War Council. At first they thought it was a trap, another of the Vayari's strange diplomatic games. But when the identity of the being was confirmed human, the Council grew anxious. Humans? The Dominion leader hissed, his long fingers tapping impatiently on the holotable. His glowing eyes narrowed. A species unknown, yet capable of surviving in the void. And now saved by the Vayari? This is a threat we cannot ignore. The Zarin Collective, a network of hive-mind species, also took note, though their concern was different. Their analysts warned that an unpredictable, resilient species could disrupt their careful control over regional trade routes. Observe and study, their council decided, but intervene only if necessary. Too early, and we risk revealing our own weaknesses. Back aboard the Lunareth, Daniel remained unaware of the growing storm. He continued to explore the ship, learning the language of the crew, studying maps of star systems, and sharing stories of Earth. He laughed easily, joked, and even tried to cook a small meal in the ship's replicator. Though the results were comically bad, the Vayari found his persistence endearing, though they could not fully understand the human need for simple pleasures, like the taste of fresh bread or the smell of rain. One evening, as the twin moons of a nearby planet cast soft light through the viewport, Daniel sat with Kaller. "Do you think my planet is safe?" he asked quietly, almost afraid to hear the answer. Kaller's eyes were heavy. "I wish I could say yes, but now that you exist and the galaxy knows, safety is no longer simple. Other empires will want to find you, to study you, or to destroy you. You were never meant to travel so far, Daniel, and now, your home may pay the price for your survival." Daniel swallowed, a chill running down his spine. The thought of Earth, his family, his friends, his cities being dragged into this strange war filled him with dread. I didn't ask for this," he whispered. His hands trembled as he clenched them in his lap. "I just wanted to survive, not start a war." Lyran approached and placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "It is not your fault, Daniel," she said softly. "You did not choose this, but now that it has begun, we must help. You are not alone." The truth weighed on them all. By rescuing Daniel, by showing compassion, the Lunareth had unintentionally revealed Earth's existence to the galaxy. What should have been a quiet, private act of mercy had become a spark capable of igniting a larger, far more dangerous fire. Later, Kaller gathered the senior crew. "We must prepare," he said. "The Dominion is already moving fleets. They will come for him, for Earth. We saved a life, yes, but that life has now made us responsible for a planet that is not ready to defend itself." A heavy silence filled the room. The crew had always faced dangers before, but this was different. This was not a simple patrol or a skirmish in distant space. This was the beginning of a war, and one that involved a world completely unprepared for it. Daniel overheard the conversation from a distance. He felt a mix of fear and resolve. Fear for his home, for the people who had no idea they were about to be pulled into galactic conflict, and resolve because he understood that running was no longer an option. His survival had consequences that he would have to face with courage. And so while the stars outside the ship seemed calm, unseen forces across the galaxy began to stir. Armies were mobilized, warships readied their weapons, and a single human, small, fragile, yet unbroken, was about to change the course of history. The Lunareth moved silently through the darkness, its sleek hull cutting through the void as it carried Daniel toward the small blue world he called home. For days he had watched the stars, tracing constellations he barely understood, imagining the oceans and forests of Earth far below. Every turn of the ship brought him closer, yet each minute was heavy with dread. "I'm not ready," Daniel admitted quietly to Kaller as they stood near the bridge's viewport. The planet hung below them, a fragile marble of blue and green surrounded by clouds like soft white feathers. "My people, they're not ready for this. We don't even have fleets. We don't have weapons to fight in space. We are ordinary." Kaller's amber eyes softened, though his expression remained serious. "Ordinary does not mean weak," he said. "Strength is not always measured by weapons or fleets. Sometimes it is courage, resolve, and unity. You have all three, Daniel. But your people will need guidance, and they will need time to believe in themselves." Lyran approached, placing a calming hand on his shoulder. Her glow shimmered in the soft light of the bridge. "We will help you," she said. "But you must understand, this journey will change everything. Once we reveal Earth's existence, the galaxy will take notice. You cannot hide anymore." Daniel's heart clenched. He had survived impossible odds in space, but now he feared for his home. Cities full of families, children, and friends would be exposed to empires far stronger than any nation on Earth. He wanted to scream, to warn them, to prepare them, but there were no words that could convey the danger awaiting them. When the Lunareth entered Earth's orbit, the planet below was alive with activity. Satellites circled silently, unaware of the alien ship above. Daniel felt a strange mix of nostalgia and panic. He remembered the forests, the oceans, the faces of those he loved. And now, those same people were about to be swept into a conflict they did not understand, one that had started because of him. Kaller made the decision. "We will make first contact carefully," he said. "We must earn trust, not cause panic. Your leaders need to understand the threat, and they must unite before it is too late." Daniel was escorted down to the planetary surface in a sleek shuttle, accompanied by a handful of Vayari guards. People stopped and stared as the shuttle descended, a ship unlike anything Earth had ever seen, glowing with energy and hovering silently above the ground. Cameras flashed, alarms sounded, and news channels immediately scrambled to report the unprecedented event. Daniel stepped forward, trying to remain calm as he approached the leaders who had gathered in a secure facility. His voice trembled slightly, but he spoke with clarity and conviction. "My friends," he said, "I am Daniel Carter and I come from Earth. I was rescued by these beings, the Vayari. But now, because of my survival, our planet is no longer hidden. Others in the galaxy know we exist. They will come. We cannot hide and we cannot wait. We must prepare together." Some leaders were skeptical. Some doubted him. But when Kaller and Lyran spoke, explaining the scale of galactic empires and the advanced technologies of their fleets, the room fell silent. Fear and awe mixed in the eyes of every person present. Daniel looked out the window at the blue sky, the forests and oceans stretching far beyond. For the first time, he realized that he was no longer just a survivor. He was a messenger, a bridge between worlds, and now the fate of Earth rested on his shoulders, on the courage of every human, and on the fragile trust between species that had just begun to understand one another. He whispered to himself, barely audible over the soft hum of the alien ship, "I hope we are ready. I hope we can survive, together." The stars above blinked silently as if listening, and somewhere in the darkness of space, the first shadows of approaching fleets were already stirring. Earth had never seen the sky like this before. Strange lights shimmered above the clouds, the alien ships of the Lunareth fleet hovering silently, yet impossibly massive in the heavens. Panic swept across cities as news spread that humanity was no longer alone in the galaxy. Daniel Carter stood in the command center with the Earth leaders, feeling the weight of every life on the planet pressing against his chest. "They'll come," he whispered. "They will not wait. We need to act now." Outside, scouts reported distant blips on the edge of the solar system. The Kothar Dominion fleet had arrived. Colossal warships, dark and menacing, moved with precision and deadly intent, their weapon systems primed for attack. The Dominion had expected an easy conquest, a weak, unarmed planet. What they did not expect was the human spirit, fierce and unyielding, ready to fight for home. Earth's governments scrambled. Old rivalries melted under the heat of necessity. Naval forces worked with space agencies. Satellites were retrofitted as defensive platforms, and underground bunkers became command centers. Humanity had little to fight with, but what they lacked in technology, they made up for in courage, ingenuity, and sheer determination. Daniel and the Vayari advisors coordinated the defense. "Conserve energy," Lyran instructed, her glow casting calm over the nervous humans. "Every missile counts. Every move must be precise." The first engagement began over the Pacific, where the Dominion fleet launched its initial strike. Massive energy beams cut through the thin upper atmosphere, destroying satellites and causing shockwaves that rattled coastal cities. Human fighters piloting hastily adapted spacecraft swerved and dodged, firing back with desperation. Daniel led a squadron himself. His hands moved swiftly over the controls, but more than skill, it was his resolve that carried him. "We fight for every inch," he shouted into the comms, his voice steady despite fear. "For our families. For Earth." The Dominion expected panic. Instead, they found determination. Human ships, though few and fragile, pressed forward, weaving in and out of debris, striking where they could. On the ground, civilians improvised defenses, protecting satellites and repair stations. Humanity was a small, seemingly weak species, but they fought with a fire that shocked even the experienced Dominion commanders. Across the globe, images of resistance spread. Citizens cheered for pilots in orbit, constructed defend, says and volunteered for dangerous missions. Even in the face of death, humans refused to bow. Daniel's voice became a symbol of hope, echoing across every communication channel. "We may be small, we may be weak, but we are humans and we will not surrender." The battle raged for hours, each side suffering heavy losses. Dominion warships, confident in their power, were forced to retreat when humans ingeniously turned old satellite networks into traps, striking critical points of the enemy's formation. The Lunareth moved strategically, shielding fragile parts of the planet, its Vayari crew coordinating attacks with precision. By nightfall, Earth had survived the first strike, but the cost was immense. Cities were damaged, satellites destroyed, and thousands of lives lost. Yet humanity had sent a message to the galaxy. This species was not to be underestimated. Daniel looked at the stars above, the Dominion ships retreating into the distance. His chest ached with exhaustion and grief for those who had fallen, but pride swelled as well. Earth had survived, humans had survived, and the galaxy was beginning to notice that a new player had entered the war, and it was not weak. The human spirit, fragile yet fierce, had made its first mark. And this was only the beginning. The morning after the first strike, Earth was scarred but not broken. Fires still burned in some cities, satellites hung damaged in orbit, and the hum of emergency sirens filled the air. Yet across the planet something remarkable stirred. Humanity was alive. They had survived an attack from a galaxy-spanning empire, and they were already fighting back. Daniel Carter moved through the command center, coordinating with Earth's leaders and the Vayari advisors. His hands trembled from exhaustion, but his eyes burned with determination. "We can't just defend," he said firmly. "We have to show them we will not be easy to destroy. Every resource counts. Every person matters." Lyran nodded, her glow soft but steady. "I am impressed, Daniel. Your people adapt quickly. Their resilience is unexpected even by my standards." On the streets, the human spirit was visible in every act. Citizens worked together to repair broken infrastructure. Volunteers rushed to help the injured, and engineers risked their lives to restore defense systems. Even children found ways to contribute, sending messages of hope, drawing symbols of courage on walls and reminding everyone what they were fighting for. Daniel himself returned to the skies. Piloting a refurbished fighter craft, he led sorties against Dominion reconnaissance ships. He was fearless, but it was not skill alone that mattered. It was his refusal to give up, his refusal to let fear dominate him. "For our families," he shouted into the comms. "For our home. We will not bow," the Vayari crew observed in awe. Even seasoned warriors like Kaler felt an unfamiliar emotion watching humans fight. Their ships were fragile, their weapons rudimentary compared to galactic standards, yet their bravery surpassed any calculation. Where other species would have fled in terror, humans pressed forward, improvising, daring, and risking everything for one another. One particularly desperate moment came when a Dominion strike team attempted to disable a key orbital station. Daniel led a small squadron in a daring counterattack. The ships weaved through enemy fire, dodging energy beams with near-impossible maneuvers. Human pilots fell, but each one's sacrifice bought time for the others. Finally, they reached the station and repaired its defenses, preventing a disaster that could have crippled the planet's communication network. Back on the ground, Earth's leaders began to understand what Daniel had been trying to show them. It was not technology alone that made a civilization strong. It was unity, courage, and the unwillingness to surrender that could turn even a fragile species into a force to be reckoned with. By nightfall, the Dominion fleet was forced to pull back once again. Their analysts were baffled. They had expected fear, panic, and surrender. Instead, they had found humans who fought for hope, who defended not for conquest but for life, for family, for each other. They had underestimated the fire that burned in these small, fragile beings. Daniel returned to the command center, exhausted but resolute. "We survived today," he said quietly, "but tomorrow will be harder. They will strike again, and we must be ready. Not just to survive, but to show the galaxy that Earth is not weak." Kaler placed a steady hand on his shoulder. "You have shown them the strength of humanity," he said. "Not through power, but through courage. They will remember it, and so will we." For the first time, Daniel allowed himself a moment of pride. Humanity was fragile, yes, but unbreakable. They had faced impossible odds and still stood tall. And in that determination, in that unyielding human spirit, lay the beginning of something extraordinary. Something that would echo across the stars and remind the galaxy that humans were a species that could not be ignored. Above, the stars twinkled silently, watching as one small world prepared to rise against a vast empire. And Daniel knew with every fiber of his being that the fire of humanity would never be extinguished. The aftermath of the first battles left Earth battered but alive. Cities bore scars of fire and destruction, yet in every street and every village and city center the human spirit shone brighter than ever. Survivors rebuilt what had been lost, and even in the face of fear, hope refused to die. Daniel Carter walked through the ruins of his home city, feeling both sorrow and pride. He had seen lives lost, families torn apart, and yet he also saw acts of heroism that defied belief. Civilians carried strangers to safety. Pilots risked their lives to save their comrades. Every act, no matter how small, reminded Daniel why humans would never give up. Kaller and Lyran stood beside him, silent observers of a species that had surprised the galaxy. "I did not expect this," Kaller admitted quietly. "To face an empire with nothing but courage and will. Your people are extraordinary." Lyran's glow shimmered softly. "They are fragile, yes, but there is a fire in them. It cannot be measured in ships or weapons. It cannot be stopped." Daniel nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility pressing against him. They had survived the first strike, but the galaxy would not forget Earth's defiance. The Dominion and other empires would return, perhaps with more fleets, more power, more intent to conquer, and yet Daniel felt no fear. Humanity had found a voice, a strength that could not be ignored. Over the following weeks, humans and Vayari worked together. Technology was shared cautiously, defenses improved, and strategies formed. For the first time, Earth's leaders began to think beyond borders and rivalries. They realized that unity was no longer a choice, it was survival. Daniel became a symbol, not of power, but of courage. His survival had brought attention to Earth, but it had also shown humans what they were capable of. The next time the Dominion returned, they expected submission. Instead, they faced a planet united, a species fighting with everything they had, refusing to bow. Human pilots flew into space beside Vayari escorts, using ingenuity and improvisation to turn weaknesses into strengths. On the ground, engineers and scientists improvised defenses, creating weapons and strategies no one had ever imagined. The Dominion withdrew once again, stunned and frustrated. They had expected an easy target. They found something else entirely. A species that, though fragile, refused to surrender. Daniel stood on a hill overlooking the city at sunset, the sky painted in gold and crimson. He breathed in the scent of Earth, the trees, the soil, the ocean breeze, and felt a deep connection to this planet. It was fragile, beautiful, and alive. And now it was also known to the stars. Kaller approached him quietly. "You wanted to survive," he said. "You wanted no part in this war. But your survival has changed everything. Your species will be remembered." Daniel smiled faintly. "I didn't ask for this," he admitted. "But I understand now. We cannot hide. We cannot run. We must be ready to fight, not because we want war, but because we want to live. Because we are humans." Lyran placed a hand on his shoulder. "And that is why you will not be forgotten. The galaxy has seen what humans can do. Even fragile, you are unbreakable." Above, the stars twinkled, vast and endless, as if watching the rise of a new force. Earth had survived its first test, but the galaxy was full of threats yet unseen. Daniel knew the road ahead would be hard, but humanity had already proven something extraordinary. They had survived the impossible, and they had done so together. He turned back toward the city, the people, the hope that had risen from the ashes. "They saved one human," he whispered, almost to himself. "But they found all of us, and now Earth has a place among the stars." And somewhere far beyond the solar system, the galaxy began to take notice. The small blue planet, fragile and unassuming, had awakened. And a warning spread silently through the cosmos. Do not underestimate Earth. The human spirit, fragile yet unstoppable, had found its place in the stars.